So I'm just going to go through this list. So the first one we have is the cerebellum. On the inside, that's this structure right here, this whole structure. When we look at it from the outside, it's this structure over here. That's going to be where we coordinate most of our skeletal movements. That's the big function. It does consist of 3 portions called peduncles, and that's all I'm going to say on that one. So, cerebral cortex, that's the outside of the brain right here, all of this outside. 75% of that is cell bodies for the entire brain. This is where all of our high functioning is going to occur, a lot of our processing. The corpus callosum is this white structure on the inside right here that is a bridge between the hemispheres of the brain. The dura mater has been removed, so we can't see it there, but it is a very tough structure on the outside. However, this right here, this outer layer with all the blood vessels, is the pia mater, the innermost layer of meninges, and can be easily removed right off the brain. Gross. The fourth ventricle, when we look at where the connection is on the cerebellum, it is right here. This is going to be the ventricle, which is a space that actually leads down into the central canal of the spinal cord. A gyre is just a fold of the brain, so you can look at the entire brain and see all of these different gyri. The frontal lobe is that towards the front end of the brain, so this front half here. And then we have the hypothalamus next on our list. That one's a little harder to locate, but it's going to be right in this region here as it leads down to the pituitary. The infundibulum is at the bottom of that hypothalamus right here in this location, right here. The lateral ventricles is a space found within the corpus callosum, right in there, that big space. It actually reaches down in there. And if you open up the brain, you can actually see the choroid plexus. That's that darkish color in there, and that is what produces all of the cerebrospinal fluid. The left cerebral hemisphere versus right. So if we look, this is the anterior, this is posterior, so that makes this the left and this the right side of the brain. Longitudinal fissure, when the brain is intact, this is the longitudinal fissure straight down the middle. We'll look at the inside again. The medulla oblongata, which is located just underneath the pons. It's right in here, a little bit easier to see on the outside. It's going to be right in here. There's a little bulge right there, a small bulge. That's going to be where we have a lot of our visceral activity, our centers, visceral centers there, like cardiac and vasomotor. Meninges, we talked about those a little bit already. We had the pia mater here, and then the hard outer shell, which is the dura mater. The midbrain sits right over here in this area. So we have the pons, midbrain is right in here. It's this area right here. In contrast to the thalamus, which is right above it. So the thalamus is fairly large right here. And so the midbrain is right underneath it. The occipital lobe is that towards the back end of the brain. And then we have the olfactory lobe or bulb. That's one of the greatest nerves, the first nerve, and it's very, very large on the sheep. And it's used for the sense of olfaction or smell. The optic chiasma is this structure right here. It actually stretches out, it crosses, when it's intact, the nerves cross right here at this chiasma and head towards each of the eyeballs. Optic nerve, same location. These are not intact, so it's hard to see. The parietal lobe, this is the frontal here, and so the parietal is right here. It's a little less defined on the sheep. So we have frontal, parietal, and occipital lobe. And while we're here, the temporal lobe is right in here. Here's the temporal lobe. Where are we at? Parietal, pia mater, pineal gland. Pineal gland, we'll get back over here, is found in here. I believe it is gone on this sheep brain. But it's going to be found right in this area right here. Normally, this is where the pineal gland would be located, right there. The pons is this outward protrusion. You can see it a little bit different, how it's slightly different than the medulla oblongata. That's right in there. Spinal cord, that's just the extension downward from the medulla oblongata. A sulcus, we talk about gyri with sulci or sulcus. And the sulcus are the grooves in here between each of the folds. So you can fold back each of the gyri through their sulci. Temporal lobe we've talked about. The thalamus, again, is right in here. We have pons in the midbrain that comes up in this direction. The third ventricle is really hard to locate because it's a space that's found right here. Right under, right there where the thalamus is at, there is a distinct space there.